Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today during this great month of Christmas. And what better way to celebrate the month of Christmas by watching and discussing a bunch of Christmas horror themed films. At the heart of this holiday is some of the best and most intriguing and controversial horror films that have ever been or have ever graced the silver screen. And one of those films we'll be discussing today is one of the most infamous of all. And to discuss the film, before I get to the title of that film, is my good friend Dave Watkins, who just loves these Christmas horror films. Dave, thank you for joining me on this conversation today.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Let's get into this thing.
Well, it's great because this month is a great month for us horror fans. It's like the second busiest horror holiday for us after Halloween, and by all purposes, it should not be, but it is. And we love our horror film, our Christmas themed horror films. And the one we're discussing today is one of the most infamous of all Christmas horror films, and that is the original 1984 Silent Night, Deadly Night, which, by the way, is, more known for what happened upon its release than the actual quality of the film. And we're going to discuss that right now because, as you may or may not know, there has been yet another remake of this film. So what better time to discuss it than now? So, Dave, I have to know, when were you introduced to this film? When did you come around to it? I gotta know when that was and what your impressions were.
Well, I vaguely remember the controversy. I remember something about it. I was very young when it happened. I think I was around, I guess, 6, but something about the commercials. And I remember people talking about it, some adults talking about it in the commercials, like it showing the act Santa on the commercials, and that it played during, and that's like the controversy, which I guess we should probably get into the controversy later, but that's how the biggest thing, that's what caught people's attention. There were killer Santa Claus movies before this one. There were 3 other ones, but none of them, none of them caught anybody's attention because they weren't advertising them. But the first time I saw this movie was when I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2.
Same here. Now I'll get to my impression.
Yeah, yeah. It's Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, as it probably got 30 minutes of it basically shows this whole movie again in a clip show through in that movie. Now, I think I was probably a teenager. Maybe I was maybe 16 or 17 or something. And then we watched it. It was horrible, but we loved it. It was so that Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is spectacularly bad because of what it almost on purpose. It's like the main actor is just like really hamming it up, and he even tells these flashbacks. This one is not like that. This one's not funny like that one is. This one takes it pretty serious. But the first time that was kind of how I got introduced to it. I eventually watched this for the first time, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I mean, really, I hadn't watched it before because I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, and it pretty much shows the movie. But when you watch the movie, it is different than watching Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. I'll also remember the VHS cover of this, which was quite fantastic in the video stores.
Okay, so for me, I saw part two first when it came out. I don't remember if my mother had seen it the first one already and I just didn't see it, but I remember her renting this movie and we renting the second one and we
Yeah,
watched that one. And obviously, I did not know that the footage at the very beginning was a retread of the footage for the first film.
yeah.
But I liked the second one, and so I wanted to see the first one. And lo and behold, I know we had the first one on, because my parents were avid video recording people, so they would record just about everything that they would rent. So lo and behold, after we rented the second one, I find out that we already had the first one, and I had to go find it. And I watched it that way. That's how I remember watching these first two movies. And these have always been a guilty pleasure thing for me. I've never thought these movies were good, but they became my go-to for the holiday season because I was not or my parents just did not. I didn't watch like Christmas Evil or Don't Open the Christmas or Elves, or I didn't see any of those as a kid.
Yeah.
I did. I've still not seen some of those other ones. These were the ones my mother had on hand, and so I watched these religiously, no matter how bad they were.
Well, and you mentioned the other ones. I haven't seen Elves either. That looks kind of cool, but I there's not like a good copy of it out there. But the ones that came out before this one, the very first Santa Claus Killer movie was a anthology film, Tales from the Crypt. The 1972 British Tales from the Crypt, and they did a remake of that for the television show that had Larry Drake play the Santa. But in the original one from 1972, and then after that, Christmas Evil, and really those other ones are not going to be too much better. Tales from the Crypt was cool, but Christmas Evil, and there's one called Silent Night, Bloody Night that doesn't really have a Santa Claus in it, but it's from 1972. And then there's another one called To All a Good Night. You ever seen that one? Yes, I
I've
hadn't
not
seen it.
seen Silent Night, Bloody Night. I've not seen any of those, dude. I
Yeah.
literally grew up only watching Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm saying that at the time, though, that's your only other options. You didn't have, there's better ones now, but none of those other ones, this is probably better than the other ones, other options. Because
Yeah.
this is better than, to me, yeah, especially as a kid, when you look at Christmas Evil, feels like something out of the 70s.
Yes.
This one does feel, especially when they have like younger characters in this one too, because like, Christmas Evil has the main characters are kind of adults. This one is kids, but this one's told in this is kind of weird. This one's like a part slasher film, but it's also an origin film as well. So it's got like it's an hour and 22 minutes. You got
Yeah.
about 20 or 30 minutes of the origin story, which is pretty strong, and then a little bit more of building up from as he's a teenager until he becomes the killer Santa eventually, and then it
Yeah.
becomes a slasher film for most of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, so that's interesting to say. To actually take note of this, the first movie, this one that we're talking about today, the original, it does spend a lot of time setting up the Billy character, who is the one who actually ends up growing up and then is so traumatized by what happened to him as a kid that he goes off and starts killing people. And that's very different than some of the other films out there, holiday
Yeah,
horror
yeah,
films out there.
right. But even if you think about what they did with like Rob Zombie's Halloween, it is kind of like they used this format for that. They kind of explain, or like what they
Yes.
really, this is an earlier version of that idea of kind of um humanizing the killer to try to get in his
Mhm.
head before he turns. And this is like a 1984 version. So the slasher film started in Black Christmas, really the first one, but they really started big with Halloween
Yep.
in '78. So this is like six years into it, and they're like, okay, we're gonna get into the mind of the killer in this one, try to do something a little different, plus make it Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. I didn't think about that when I was rewatching it, but that's actually a very good distinction and observation that with this film, which is only like you said 6 years after Halloween, they're getting into the mind of the actual killer. And to be honest with you, when it does that, you actually feel a little sympathy towards the character because of everything that he had, the
Yeah,
trauma that happened to
yeah.
him before he all starts killing people. Um,
And they make like there's so many, which could be a little annoying, but there's so many shitty characters in his life. So I mean, other than his parents are good, but then they're killed by Santa Claus. But then he has one. There's one character. He goes into this orphanage, and there's a one of the nuns is kind of compassionate and on his side, and then the other nun is very strict in the discipline, and it kind of that's what pushes him into, I guess, a kind of a kind of wanting to be good, and he's fighting it because he's fighting what he's seen in the trauma, and he's got one teacher's like telling him he has to be good, or she spanks him or tortures him pretty much, and then the other one is trying to understand him. She's doing it as like a psychological way, and so he does kind of have a bit of a champion, but it ends up not being enough to set it to to make it not to push him over to the edge psychologically because of all the damage that was done to him.
So before you get too much into this to talking about the film, I do want to give just the setup for this movie because
Yeah,
it's very important since we're talking about the psychological makeup of our killer Billy. Billy and his brother, what's his brother's name?
Ricky.
Ricky, who his brother Ricky are really really young, and they're driving home from I forget what they're driving home for, but their family is having a good time driving home. Can't wait till Christmas, and unfortunately they
Hold on, hold on a minute. You're missing something that's really good.
okay.
They're not driving home from a good time. They go
So
to see the granddad in the mental facility.
oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
which is such an awesome scene, and it's
The grand the grandpa who's supposed to be catatonic, but
yeah,
is just playing. Feel like he's
yeah.
acting like he's catatonic.
But something's up. So I think he's insane though. But the kids, one of them's a baby, an infant, in a baby.
Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky's an infant. The other kid is very young. He's probably like 5 or 6 or something like that. I think he's I wrote it down, but I think he's let's see. Oh, jeez.
He's
I
really
can't.
young because
Yeah, he's probably like 6. See, in
eight, eight,
1974, no, he's 8 in
eight.
1974. That's when he's in the orphanage, though. The very first scene takes place in it takes
But
place several years before that because he's
yeah,
played.
it opens in 1971, and Billy it says is 8 years old in 1971. Uh,
Okay, all right.
and I made that note about the grandfather because I forgot that I wanted to talk about him because it's such an interesting opening.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and they don't want to go see their grandfather, but it's what they do on Christmas or Christmas Eve. They go see the grandfather just to placate the grandfather, and of course, while the parents are away, grandfather comes out of his
yeah.
psychosis or
Yeah,
catatonia.
yeah.
Uh,
What's hilarious about it though is like when it's kind of like in a an oddly written way, in a like really like contrived way, but it ends up working. Like the nurse is like, "Hey, we got some paperwork to work on. You guys come with me." And the parents like leave him in there by himself with this catatonic grandfather. But anyway, go ahead. I just wanted to set the stage for that because I thought it was like so contrived the way they all left the room. But you had to get them out of the room. I'm
you
just
have to get
thinking
him
that
out of the room. You have to get him
as
out
a
of the room.
script writer, I'm just thinking that's hilarious. Most people won't notice it, but I'm just thinking that is so funny. They just all leave the room and leave him in there. It's you just leave him in there with this weird granddad.
Well, because his grandfather's supposed to be catatonic, he won't do anything. Yet, Billy does fear his grandfather a little bit, and he fears him even more when his grandfather wakes up and tells him all this stuff about Christmas. And
Yeah,
like I can't remember the exact words, but more or less,
I wrote some of it down.
oh,
I
did
didn't
you
write
write that?
all of it
Okay.
down. Yeah, he says, "If you see Santa, you better run. You better run for your life."
Like, feel like there's a reason for him to say that.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
odd, but yes.
Well, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you say he's playing catatonic. But maybe there is something. Maybe he is catatonic and he's maybe tuned in to some kind of psychic sort of thing. Maybe he's can see the future a little bit. He asked him. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching on that or reaching on that, but he does ask him. You ask him if he's naughty, if he's been naughty, and he knows that he's not. And then the kid says, he's asked him if he's been good or naughty, and then he's like, he kid admits that he's been somewhat naughty, and then he flips out on him. But he tells him, but maybe maybe I don't think because the movie doesn't ever go into this in any other character, but I mean it is possible that he foresaw something or felt something coming like that maybe in a psychic way, but he may just be a crazy old dude pretending like he's. But why would he pretend like he's
Catatonic?
catatonic?
I
You
have
know,
no idea.
but he,
It makes no sense, but it's one of those things in this movie from the 80s that you just in the 80s they did a lot of random stuff like this in films. This
yeah,
is this is mid 80s, so I don't really know. To be honest with you. A lot of the late 80 movies decided to have stuff that doesn't really gel with the rest of their films, and you just kind of watch them to watch who gets killed and how fast they get killed and how they got killed. Whereas this one, that a lot of the kills are not nearly as graphic as what would come later in the 80s. So this scene right there at the very beginning is just off-putting, as though Christmas isn't a really safe holiday for you if you've been naughty.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, I mean, I like the scene. Actually, I think it was pretty effective,
oh
and
yeah,
it's I'm just saying, like, I guess I'm asking the question of why would he be pretending? That's why I'm leaning more towards it being like a supernatural occurrence, but we never see any other supernatural occurrences during the rest of the film.
okay.
So yeah, that's all I'm saying. I don't think. I mean, I think it could lean towards that way, but I don't see any evidence in the rest of the movie to
It's, it could
say
be a
that.
spiritual thing. Since
Yeah, yeah.
religion and faith play a huge part in this movie, it could be a spiritual thing.
Yeah, but that's another thing I think that it was controversial about this movie. Like, it's not as bad as some of the other movies, but I think it was just the way it was pitched, and it does have like the spiritual. It almost seemed like there was an attack on Santa Claus going on and Christmas in general. When it's weird, I saw like something just popped up randomly on Instagram today from 1983. It was like a commercial about it was like about a anti-communist commercial like it was played in San Francisco, and Santa Claus's cartoon, he's flying through the sky, and it's like he's like, you don't want to be a communist like Russia, because this is what's going to happen. And it's Russia red, and they blow Santa Claus up, scared the shit out of his children. And then same thing with this. Suddenly they're putting out like this ads during time of the day where kids are watching TV, and obviously they were trying to get people in seats here, but maybe they didn't have an attention. But parents were starting to think that there was a anti Christmas thing going on.
Hmm.
But for me, I can like Christmas and still enjoy Christmas horror film.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see like I don't see it as an attack on Christmas, but I could see like people being worried that it is an attack on Christmas.
it's weird because I don't really see it as an attack on Christmas, because essentially the Billy character is punishing people who have been naughty, so to speak, and it's not one of those films where, for me, I mean, he's not even attacking religion really, despite the fact that his mistreatment from Mother Superior. Um, it's one of those things where by the end of the movie, he feels like he's going back to where everything was perfectly fine for him. Um, if he had never had that trigger, if he had never had the trigger in this movie where he was forced to wear Santa Claus suit and perform for these kids, he was going. That's the one that sets him off. That's what sets him off in the movie. And then at the very end, he's more or less going back to his what used to be his safe spot, despite the mistreatment from Mother Superior, or the mistreatment as he saw it. Now in the 80s, I would probably think that what Mother Superior did to him and the other kids there was perfectly fine, and acceptable. Of course, that would not be acceptable now.
Yeah. Well, it's depicted in this way is not acceptable. The way it's depicted in the movie. You ever? This is 1998. I mean, 1988. The Blues Brothers. You ever see the Blues Brothers?
Unfortunately, I have
Superior.
not seen it all the way
Oh man,
through. I've seen
it's it.
pieces and bits of it throughout
Yeah.
my entire life, but never watched it from beginning to end.
That movie's hilarious, but there's a Mother Superior in that, and she like beats the shit out of the two main characters. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of brings to mind that, but it's hilarious in the Blues Brothers, and they're trying to get away from her, like stuck in a desk. But here you got her beating these kids with a belt, and really that was kind of how they discipline kids back there. And
Yeah,
most of the time, in most situations, with most of the kids, it probably worked. But this Mother Superior had seen it work before, and it did work, but it didn't work. It doesn't always work, because in this situation there was a traumatic experience that
hmm,
happened to Billy, that it did work for a while until it actually ended up. It worked for a while, but then it didn't work once the trigger of the Santa Claus happened, and
correct.
he became. That's what I was saying earlier, because her thing was like, anybody's naughty, they're going to get the belt and they're going to be punished. And so once he becomes Santa Claus, he kind of becomes her too, and he's going to punish them in a more severe way.
Hmm.
But I guess we need to go back earlier to why what his severity of comes from seeing the Santa Claus attack his parents when they're driving back. But we do see a in the earlier setup, you see that Santa Claus in a he robs a gas station, which
Hmm.
is pretty hilarious scene, and then he shoots the well. It's not supposed to be funny. I think it's
I don't
funny.
think in '84 it was funny, but now since I think me and you both have seen this several times uh, over the years, it's
Yeah,
funny now.
yeah. But
But
it's obviously not funny because
yeah,
people rob gas stations and they accidentally it shoots the dude and ends up with only $20 when he leaves, you know.
yeah,
And it's he says $31, Merry fucking Christmas. I mean, that's hilarious. I mean, there's actually a lot of f bombs in this movie, and some of the
yes.
dialogue is pretty damn funny. Just him saying that, like "Merry effing Christmas" when he's leaving, man, it's great. But it's also a random scene in a way because it's not you see this you didn't even really need that scene because the Santa Claus being on the side of the road because it, I say it's random because you're following characters, the parents and the kids and their journey, and you suddenly cut to a gas station where the Santa Claus is robbing the gas station, and then I mean I'm glad it's in the movie because I thought it was greatly hilarious, but it wasn't needed at all because just seeing that Santa Claus broken down on the side of the road, they pull up on him, and then they you don't really if you don't know that he robbed the gas station, it might even be more effective because you know that Billy's grandfather told him to stay away from Santa and to run if he sees him, and they
Yeah,
see the Santa on the side of the road, and he tells them get turn around, don't stop,
yeah.
just keep going, and of course they stop anyway. But it's actually interesting they actually do some the dad does a pretty good maneuver that you almost don't expect because you don't expect for the direction to be realistic, but he stops. He notices the guy. The Santa Claus comes down, says some cryptic shit to him, and then he tries to grab him. And the dad actually hits reverse in the car, which is the thing you should be doing. He tries to get away, but then the Santa Claus shoots the dad
Hmm.
through the windshield. He falls out and dies. And then the kid gets out and runs away. But then he takes the mom and rips her shirt off, which it may seem a gratuitous or sexualization maybe a little bit, but I think it's needed in this scene for him to see the Santa like do that. I think if this movie would have been if it would have been if they really like in real I guess if you were thinking about the in reality the Santa Claus probably would have raped the mom, but they couldn't go that far with this movie, so they ended up him just ripping her shirt off and then cutting her throat after she attacks him.
I believe it was, and I may be one of the very few people who would think this. You might agree. You might actually agree with me on that. I think you're right. I think it is needed because that trauma of seeing his mother get her blouse or her shirt ripped off by this Santa Claus and then almost being raped. She almost does, but doesn't because he ends up killing her. Traumatizes him to the point that when we see it later on in the film, with the one actress, I can never pronounce her damn name. I've never been able to pronounce her name properly, so I'm not gonna screw it up later. But when she's naked and he walks in on
Yeah.
her and her
Who is it?
boyfriend.
Leanna Quigley, right?
Yeah, yeah, I can never
That's probably I
pronounce
don't
it.
think I'm pronouncing it right either, but yeah, she's been nude in like Return of the Living Dead and
Yeah,
also Night of the Demons, but
yes.
that's kind of her thing. It seems to work. It may be like she. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of her thing, but she really good in Return of the Living Dead. You know,
She's
if
had a
that
very
happens.
she's had a very long career playing in horror films and stuff like that. And she, in a lot of them, she has been naked and she's very famous for Return of the Living Dead in this film because the way she dies in this film. Everyone knows the way she dies in this film. But that trauma as he was a kid, it plays into his psychosis for when he sees other characters, especially like this. He's seeing this woman naked, and all this is triggering for him. I think it's much more powerful that he's watching violence and sexual violence on the
Right.
from Santa, who's supposed to be like not a protector, but this holier than thou good element, which is turned upside down. And then, of course, when he's stuck in a more or less a home for wayward children at the monastery or church, his ideal of these, which should be good people, which is Mother Superior and Sister Margaret.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
Sister Margaret. Um, it's not what you would expect as a nurturing atmosphere. Like if he had had a nurturing atmosphere after that trauma, he would have been a different person. But
Well, maybe not. I mean, this thing festers, but it doesn't help. I don't think.
no, no,
Like we was talking about, like Sister Margaret, like I was saying, does try to help him
yes,
throughout his life, but it's not. I mean, I think the fact that she's not completely in charge, and she has to not do something like when she feels like she needs to do something, but she can't overstep Mother Superior in some instances where he's being punished in a ridiculous way,
yeah. No, I
unfairly a lot of times.
no, I agree. But the film does go a long way in establishing that Billy, with Sister Margaret's influence over that time span of where he is a little boy or teenager to when he grows up, and she gets him the job at the toy store. We see a lot of a montage of him being like the most helpful employee, helping everyone out, giving everyone that extra special help whenever they need it. There's
Yeah.
that's a very great scene to set up this character as this person who would be normal and would be someone we'd actually have as a friend or whatnot, until of course he experiences that trigger that brings about this huge trauma that he had when he was a kid. Because unfortunately for him, because it was both violence and sexual violence, and it was Santa Claus, it's something that is buried so deep in him that no one can help him get past it, not even his brother. um at
But
that time.
this, yeah, just to touch on that montage scene is really great,
Yeah.
and it has Christmas music. But he starts in the spring, and it goes through the spring until it gets to the Christmas. And what's interesting, because that's the first time you really see him as the oldest version of the character, was 18 years old. That's the first time you see him as that character. Before you even have a dialogue scene with him, really, you have this. You may understand everything about him just from this montage. Like at one point, they're drinking some alcohol, and they try to give him some, and he's like, "No, thanks. I'm just going to drink some milk," like that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I was saying, but he has taken this. It's I think it's like this. There's I guess there's like a fight inside of him. There's a fight between Sister Margaret and Mother Superior, and they're both like really a conflicting. Um, it's almost like a parenting thing too, when you have two parents who have different points of view on how a kid needs to be, and
Yeah.
they're fighting each other, and he's got that turmoil inside of him, and of course, like that's enough to make one person crazy anyway when you got different ways to parent. Um, one thing we with earlier, when he's still a kid at the orphanage, and another sexual scene, he opens the door,
Oh yeah.
and then there's like two people at the orphanage, two adults, people working there having sex, and he sees that, and he gets punished because he saw it. Yeah, so, but that's one of the times when he gets punished that's the most ridiculous. But it seems like she's constantly punishing him. She's always trying to make him. Well, I think Mother Superior knows, she knows what happened to him, and she feels that him more than anybody else needs to stay, needs to understand to be good, because she doesn't want him to become like a killer or whatnot. I think in her mind, Mother Superior's mind, what she's doing is the righteous thing, and that's keeping him on the straight and narrow track, because she
Yeah.
thinks he's a naughty kid, and she has to kind of control that the best she can. That's what she thinks in her mind. But
Yeah, I kind of get that impression too. I get the impression that she doesn't want him to stray from the righteous path, so to speak. And him watching those two have the sex, whether it is by accident or if he snuck around to watch, it's naughty in her eyes. It's bad for him. So that's why I think she punishes him. Even though it's completely 100% innocent on his path, he wasn't looking for it. It just happened. I think Mother Superior thinks of this kid Billy as someone who, we need to keep him on the straight path, because I can just see the she could see what is bad in him, or what is evil in here, or what is not in him, when Sister Margaret only wants to see the good in everyone. um and it's interesting to have those two different people in this film, Sister Margaret and Mother Superior, and their differing views on the way that they should treat their wards. I think it's a and even when we see Sister Margaret at the very end with all of her charges, right when Billy shows up in the Santa Claus attire.
You mean Mother Superior?
Yeah, sorry, Mother
Yeah,
Superior. Sorry, Mother Superior.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting how in this film she never thinks that she's ever done anything wrong to any of these kids, whereas we are watching the film, because we have the Sister Margaret. We get to see just how different these two characters are towards their wards, and just how, I don't, he's not, evil's not right, but bad or misguided
Yeah.
superiors ideals are. That's probably
They
misguided.
yeah. Well, it too. What's interesting at the end of it, when you see, because you don't see Mother Superior for a long time. You see her during the actress is top billed in the opening credits, but you see her like during the first 30 minutes when he's younger, and
Mhm.
then when he's an adult, you don't see her again until near the end. And the first time you see her, when you see her again, she's now in a wheelchair. It's been like a
Yes.
lot of time, which makes her a little more vulnerable. And she's actually seems to be different in some ways. She seems to be less aggressive with the kids, and the kids seem to like her more. And Ricky, like his brother specifically, she seems that he's good. She's like
Mhm.
he's good, unlike his brother. She hasn't been treating him the same way, and she even says that like she hasn't had to do it because she wasn't worried about Ricky like she was about Billy.
Yeah. No, no, you know what? I don't know if I ever really noticed that she was in the wheelchair until I just rewatched it again. Because she doesn't show up for so much, so she's missing for so much of the film. I just didn't think about it until I rewatched it. It's like, oh shit, she's in the wheelchair, and there's no
Yeah.
establishing why she's in a wheelchair or when any of this shit happened.
Well, yeah, I think it's a time thing though. I mean, even with like Sister Margaret, they did some makeup on her to make her look a little older. I'm not sure if they made her try to make her look older or made her look younger for the earlier scenes, but I think they were just trying to give you something for time, because time does things to people, and it has to kind of. I think that's what they were trying to go for, is just show you their times past and things. Or it could have been a situation where the actress needed a wheelchair. I don't know. I think it was just trying to show time, though.
You know how filmmakers, when movie people are making movies and she could have been injured on set,
Yeah,
or maybe
right.
shit, we'll just stick the character in a wheelchair and get over it that way. Uh,
But I mean, I think even if it was a mistake, I think it actually helps the character, and it makes her, you see her in a different light, a more vulnerable light
yeah,
at the end, because she's in charge at the beginning, the first time you see her, and then the next time you see her, suddenly she's in a compromised position because now she's in a wheelchair and can't really protect herself like she
yeah.
could before.
No, no, I agree with you. I was like, I just noticed that on the rewatch. Up until the rewatch for the program, this has just been that movie I throw in the background, and on the random Christmas time, and that's what this movie has been. It's never been a film that I actually sat down and tried to digest the nuances of the
Yeah.
film.
Well, because you we're watching this when we're younger for the slasher part, and
Yes.
not for this pretty interesting dynamic with these nun characters. Like I think when the first time I saw it, I was like not really even wanting to try to wrap my head around that at all. I was just like, let's get to the good stuff. But actually, like this sort of stuff now, it kind of gives a different dynamic to the film,
Yes.
and the characters are pretty well written, really.
Yeah, yeah. I like I said, I think this film does not get enough credit, because of the time period in which it was released, and the original response to the film with the people who had the criticisms on the film were from people who had never actually seen the film. It was just what it was about
Yeah.
that made it controversial, and not the actual quality of the actual film.
Oh, yeah, I want to throw out a couple of movies here from that year. Of course, it opened the same weekend as Nightmare on Elm Street, and it beat it at the box office. It was making more money until it got pulled
Yeah,
because all the people were picketing this movie. They were coming to the theaters and picketing, and I think that's kind of what I remember hearing about that
yeah.
happening. That it was just such a terrible movie that they had to picket it, and they actually pulled it from the theater, which eventually may have helped it, but it had to dive. And the next weekend, Nightmare on Elm Street's clearly a superior movie to this movie. But other movies from the same year, Gremlins, Children of the Corn, and Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter.
Oh,
So,
Jesus.
but if you think about those movies, this has a lot different feel to that. I mean, it seems older to me. You watch Nightmare on Elm Street, especially, or Gremlins, that feels like 80s to me. This one still feels like early 80s or late 70s when you're watching it.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does feel like a late 70s film to me. Um I'm trying to think of the movie that I'm trying to think of because it feels a lot like it. Let me look just to the okay. Yeah, because I was about to say it feels more like a Maniac type film. Uh
Yeah.
and
Okay.
that was 1980s. 1980, not 80s.
It's a,
19
it, there was such a dramatic change in just a few years
Mhm.
between I think between 1980 and 1996 or 1994. It's just a big difference you can definitely tell the difference in a movie from 1980 and 1994,
Oh yeah.
except for this one. But if you look at, if you were to take, this one you could look at this one and say that could have been in but I would think maybe after 96, something happened there where things started to look a lot different.
Well, we'll say this: that between this film and, like you said, 80, this is 84. So in 86, we also got the Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, which was also one of the films that highlighted a serial killer. And I actually
Yeah.
remember that one more than I do this one because I almost saw Henry at the theater when it came out because my friend was dying. He was telling me all about this movie that was hardcore, and I was like, I ain't never heard of no movie called Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and shit. So I saw that in like 87. Because I didn't go to theater to see Henry, but I saw it when it came out on VHS. So I can imagine seeing it in 87. And like I said, I didn't see this one till the second one, which I believe was 88. So this
Yeah.
would have been right up my alley around the late 80s, instead of in 84 when I was down watching Children of the Corn, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Gremlins because I saw Gremlins at the theater when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
My parents
Yeah.
would have never
Gremlin.
taken me to go see this film, but I definitely saw Gremlins at the theater.
Well, I think the thing about this film that makes it hard for especially kids. I mean, even Gremlins or Nightmare on Elm Street, even Nightmare on Elm Street is fairly violent, but this one does have a pretty excessive amount of nudity in it,
Yes.
especially for a younger person watching it. So I don't think it's very appropriate for anyone too young just because of how graphic the nudity and the sexual violence is in it.
I finally get around to seeing this 4 years after it was released when the second one comes out. I
No,
guarantee
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that to me,
I don't know either.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying if I was I would feel completely comfortable showing Gremlins, even though it's scary to some kids. I think a 10-year-old or something, or even younger. This one I would say this was probably 16 years old. I would put it at that or something like that. But obviously, I've saw things like this that were much worse at much younger. So I don't know.
it's funny. I don't remember what films just shook me the most when I was that young in the 80s, and I saw a lot of these 80s horror films. I do remember, and I saw them in the 80s.
Yeah.
Over the course of this program, I've mentioned many films that I've seen at the from the 80s that I saw at the theater when they were released. And I just mentioned Gremlins is another. I saw it at 84, so I was like 10, 11 years old when I saw that at the theater. And that left an impression on me. But I never thought it was horrifying like some of the other friends of mine who grew up later were telling me this is one of the
Yeah.
scariest. Gremlins was scary, and they would never go back and watch it.
Yeah, I never thought it was scary at all,
I
but
didn't think it was scary either.
but I mean,
Uh,
I could see why they might think that, especially it is especially the scenes after it gets dark and the mom's in the house by herself and she's attacked by several gremlins, which is a pretty awesome sequence. But that sequence is the mom is supposed to die in that scene is because they write her out of the script immediately. He takes over to the neighbor's house, so it's like that it would have made a big impression on the movie if the mom had died. The teacher gets killed too. That's
yeah,
pretty crazy too when that
yeah.
happens.
But this film, I don't know. It's graphic. Don't get me wrong, it's graphic. And by 1988, 89, when I finally saw it, I was I don't know if it was cartoonish to me or what. This movie never scared me as a kid. Um,
This movie is psychological though. It has a psychological. It's especially for a kid, because if you think a kid becomes
yes,
a killer, so it's like it's not like the kid's the hero, like in like say Return of the Living Dead Part Two, where he's the hero. The kid becomes the killer. That's kind of again, that could be like leave an impression on a kid. It kind of encouraged him to become a Santa Claus killer. No, but it's like a different type of dynamic where I think a kid can watch a horror movie, but it makes it harder when they try to make you relate to the killer, and the killer's the main character here.
yeah. And so that is what I wanted to get at with this conversation because that is what makes it so much different than other films. Because essentially is our killer is a kid who is traumatized, becomes a teenager, and takes out his trauma on other people, including a couple teenagers. The teenagers who steal the slides from the good teenagers. These two bad
Yeah.
teenagers steal their sleds from the good teenagers, and one of them gets killed. And of course,
Right.
Linnea Quigley. I can never pronounce her
I
name.
think it's Linnea. I think it's Linnea
Yeah,
Quigley.
yeah. I
Yeah.
hope to meet her one day so I could actually ask her how the hell to pronounce her name correctly.
They
Uh,
probably got videos on it somewhere, but it looks like Linnea. But I want to get into this sled thing. I think we should talk about the shop first, though, because that's sort of the first thing that happens. And after the montage, you start to hear dialogue for the first time from Billy, and the first part you hear, there's a fucking coworker named Andy. He comes up to him and he's dropping the f bomb. I guess that's why I dropped the f bomb, because I'm just imagining that character in my head.
yeah,
It's kind of jarring too when you're watching this, like when the f bomb suddenly dropped, like very haphazardly, which it's just like, especially because you don't hear it for a while, and suddenly this Andy guy comes up. There's been this montage, and he's like, "Look here, I don't want to have a conversation with you about your work ethic." Pretty much what he's saying, but he's dropping the f bomb in every other word, and
yeah,
he's like, "You used to be good, and now." Yeah, now it's like you're zoning out. You're just not keeping up your end of the work. I mean, kind of like kids today when they start looking at their phones in the middle of. But he's also kind of seems to be distracted because of the Christmas stuff. They start putting up the Christmas decorations, and then during the montage he sees the picture of Santa Claus, and maybe that's what's causing them, or maybe it's the same thing with kids today. Like you have to ride their asses or they're not going to work. So
yeah,
Andy's kind of tired of him having to ride his ass and having to go out there and tell him everything to do or he won't do shit. So, but the Andy character is very. I kind of when he's saying that to him, I'm kind of relating with Andy a little bit. But then later on, Andy turns out to be a real asshole. So,
yeah, yeah. Uh,
but
I got
yeah,
the impression that Andy is a character who is using Billy to do all the work that he doesn't want to
yeah.
do. Um,
Yeah, I think everything he says in that scene is probably bullshit, probably. And at first I'm thinking he might. I mean, there's got to be some truth to it though. If he's saying he's zoning out, and but you're right. I mean, he turns out to be a complete prick, and he probably is using Andy so he doesn't have to do any work.
yeah. And then
And
of course, he's Andy's on the verge of raping the one girl, what's her name? Pamela?
Pamela, yeah, yeah,
Pamela, the one that Billy actually likes a little bit.
yeah.
But of course he's shy because he's never been outside of the whole called convent or the orphanage, however I think it's an orphanage. Um, so he doesn't have that connection or that relationship, or I never explored those type of feelings towards someone else. And of course he's quiet the entire time.
Now,
But
yeah, these characters in this toy store are pretty interesting. Like they're all like yeah, they're all like kind of painted in a bad way, but even like see the guy that hires him was Mr. Sims. That guy's hilarious. He's like, and they're all cussing a bunch. I think that's kind of the point because him having that naughty thing. He doesn't cuss. He doesn't drink. They all drink after work. They
Mhm.
all like don't like Christmas, which he doesn't like Christmas either. But he's kind of scared of it. And then Mr. Sims' character is like, finally we get rid, be done with this fucking holiday. He says something like that, but it's like it and then you got Pamela who seems like the girl that he's going to end up with, but that when it's at the Christmas party, and this is like before the Christmas party, they Santa Claus who is out there, he attacks him at one point, doesn't he? Like the is the Billy character attack the Santa Claus, or is he attacks him when he's a kid? That's what happens,
Yeah,
right?
he texts him when he's a kid.
Yeah, we
Uh,
didn't talk about that. Was hilarious. That was hilarious because he
we
actually
don't
punches
we
him in the
don't see
face.
and when Billy's 18 or teenager, we don't see the Santa Claus that's supposed to be in the mall because he doesn't show up because he was
Oh no,
drunk.
yeah, you do see him at first though. You do see him. I don't think he interacts with him, but
Uh,
He's there in the scene. But then he got hurt, so then Billy has to become the Santa Claus. Well, it's funny because he comes back there. Mr. Sims comes back there and he picks Billy to do it
yeah.
of all people because he could pick Andy, he could do it himself, but he just picks Billy to be the one to do it. And there's like, Billy's like, yeah, sure, whatever you need, and then he tells him what it was, and he's just like, holy shit, Santa Claus.
Who doesn't like Santa? Of course, our first scene with him as Santa Claus, he doesn't know how to control the kids, which is quite
Yeah.
funny in my opinion. This whole line of kids lining up to sit on Santa Claus laps and tell Santa Claus what they want for Christmas, and he can't control the one kid that's on his lap until he
Yeah.
makes some crude and very scary words to the child. It almost
It's like
traumatized
a yeah,
the
yeah.
child.
It's like a girl that she's like just won't sit right on his lap. He pulls out some Mother Superior. It's kind of a combination of
Yes.
Mother Superior and his grandfather. What he says to her uh, scares her, and then
Yeah.
and then it shows the Mr. Sims character is like, okay, cool, that worked. Yeah, yeah. He just has like kind of a shrug. He looks at the kid, kind of like a little bit. What happened? He's like, okay, whatever.
No, it's good that you mentioned that because I thought that too. That what he says and how he acts in that scene is very much how he was reacted or what was told to him from his grandfather and from Mother Superior. I never saw that until I rewatched it and when I was actually paying attention to all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
right.
got that then. I always thought the opening sequence was just funny to me with the grandfather. I never gave it much credence until we rewatched it, and I was like, oh, okay. That's how I now think this is a much better written film than I would have given it credit for back when I was growing up. Of course, like I said, and like you said, when we're growing up watching this damn movie, we just want to see people get killed and see some naked women. So,
What couple of things I noticed in the store, like some of the toys, it's kind of cool. There's a Star Wars Jabba the Hutt set, and there's also a Kroll toy set. You see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, yeah. And the Jabba the Hutt one's very pronounced. It's in the background of a scene that goes on for a while, right behind somebody's head. But I think I had that same one when I was a kid. Man. It's pretty cool.
I probably
Yeah,
had that one too. I remember
but
having, or my
yeah,
brother. I remember my brother having the Job of the Hut playset.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, it was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, but there's a bunch of them on the shelf. I'm like, damn. It was like just to have some of those Jabba the Hutt sets. Those things are probably worth a lot of money. But But it's kind of funny that I didn't even know there's like a Kroll, from the Kroll movie that we covered. There's a toy set about that too. It has the main character's face on the front of it and stuff.
Yeah, there was a few, and from my understanding is they were pulled very fast because the movie tanked at the box office. So it's funny. So they must have shot this in a working toy store, for that stuff to still be on the shelf like that. It must have been a working toy store. So
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah,
it was a low
apparently,
budget
yeah,
movie, so I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. So
Apparently, the location still exists. It's a gem now, from what I was reading about.
mm,
Yeah, so
everyone
because
buys their toys online.
yeah. So on Christmas Eve, when everything's over, he's not going to be Santa Claus anymore, and everything seems like it might be okay. That's when he doesn't like a couple of things happen that trigger him. The
Mhm,
first thing that happens, the boss gets him to drink alcohol for the first time,
mhm.
and that's him becoming naughty in a way himself. And then I think, and then the other guy, the Andy character, taking the Pamela goes with him willingly to the back, and they're making out, and the Andy guy just can't control himself. He decides he's going to rape her out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this is your coworker. You're just gonna rape her right there
Yeah,
in the back row
yeah,
while your boss is up in the front? That damn, that's
yeah,
bold.
yeah. I think it was pretty unrealistic. I think they went a little far with the scene, but they obviously were trying to. I don't know exactly why they could have done it another way, which they could have done it like she was into it and willingly to do it. But I guess they had to make it. They had to give Billy a reason to attack the first guy, um, Andy, but which it also makes it really jarring when he turns on her after that.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he saves her from being raped, but she reacts to him killing Andy. Uh
But
and then
he strangles him with like lights, that's how he kills the dude. Yeah,
yeah, and it's probably shocking even today that instead of being thankful that he saved her from being raped, she is more traumatized by the fact that he killed her,
yeah,
or he killed him, Andy, and that also triggers or sets him off because he had feelings or some type of feelings for this woman, and of course she was being naughty by being with Andy, and of course
yeah,
her reaction to Andy being killed just made it even worse for both her when she
yeah.
gets killed and him. Sets him off.
I think yeah. I mean, I don't. I think she would have the way that she acts. She probably would have been forgiven Andy for raping her. Probably would have been like just another thing that happened. It does seem like that's the way it would have went.
Yeah.
I wrote down a line here though I didn't mention earlier. Like when they close the shop up, here's what Mr. Sims says. It's fucking hilarious. He's like, um, oh, it's over now. It's time to get shit faced.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally says that. He's like, let's get shit faced.
Which is hilarious. Well, I'm hoping people in the '80s weren't like this, but the funny thing about this is, I think what they're trying to give is these people work in a toy store year round, and Christmas is both their most lucrative and crazy time of year, and they say, "Oh, thank God, it's finally over.
Yeah,
Let's get shit faced because we don't have to sell any more toys for say a week or two."
yeah, yeah. But
And
it's
so
just
they
yeah,
all Yeah, so it's like the
yeah,
big party where everybody is getting shit faced, except for Billy at first, until they more or less force him to take a drink.
yeah. And it which I mean, it makes. I mean, it's really sets up all these characters. Even it sets them up to be naughty is really
Yes.
that's the whole point of all that anyway. But I think it's funny the way that they do it. During this time, at one point, was nurse sister Margaret calls and finds out that she didn't know he's been dressed as a Santa Claus, and she calls and finds that out, and she starts to head down that way when all this is starting to happen. But while after he kills the first two, then he also goes and kills the boss. The Mr. Sims comes back there. He's at that point he's just completely lost it. He's kind of become a killing machine, and he
Mhm.
kills him with a hammer. It doesn't show it go into his head, but it shows the aftermath of it later. And then the last person who is I don't know if I wrote down her name, but Was it
I don't.
Miss Randall? Yeah,
Yes, Miss Randall.
yeah. There's a pretty cool sequence because he gets the axe, the fire axe, and he tries to kill her with that, but he's not successful. And there's kind of a little bit of a run with the character, which is kind of cool that she, they do that a few times with characters in this where it's not like they just automatically get killed. Like it's a character like Miss Randall that you wouldn't expect to put up that big of a fight. She's like the older of the people working there.
Mhm.
She actually puts up a decent fight before he shoots her with an arrow. She's getting away and he has an arrow and shoots her with it. So
Because a toy store has real arrows back then.
yeah,
You know what? The '80s were so innocent with the Toy Stories. You know, they had the BB guns and stuff like that for kids. And you think nowadays none of that shit would fly in a
yeah,
kid's toy store, but back then, oh my God,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
innocence of the
Yeah.
'80s.
I saw like a BB gun over at Walmart the other day. And had a Red Ryder BB gun trying to
Oh
sell
my
them for
God.
Christmas. Yeah, they have one. So you shoot your eye out, kid.
Oh
Yeah,
Jesus. Well, keep in mind that back in the day, Walmart's used to sell guns too, but they don't do that anymore.
yeah. I think some of them still might sell guns.
You
I think
think so?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think so. I don't know. If recently, I saw it. They may not now. But a few years ago, I saw some over
oh.
there.
I can't remember if they
But,
said
but
airsoft guns.
yeah,
Uh,
it's not in the toy section though. No, it's
no,
over there in the
I hope
it's in the
not.
hunting section. Yeah,
I hope not. Jesus.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, but after he kills everyone there at his own toy store, it sets off a chain reaction where we know where he's heading, and anyone who gets in his way, gets killed. Now, from there on, there is a lot of just random, like little vignettes of people who get killed by him now, and there's no discernible reason why
yeah.
any of these people get killed, other than the fact that in his eyes, he's going from one place to his orphanage, and he's killing anyone and everyone that he sees that has been naughty.
But
And
yeah, yeah. Like those. There's two sequences really where they're both pretty cool sequences. But
yeah,
those two sequences could be completely cut from this movie, and it would make more sense because it is really random. But it's a cool. They're both cool sequences, but they're both very random. And
mhm,
that's something that script wise could have been set up a little better. Like the characters that he kills, if he would have interacted with them earlier and known that they're naughty, and then he goes out and specifically goes and kills those people. I think it could have been set up better. Like he maybe saw them in the toy store and he knew kind of where they were.
mm,
But I mean, that's just me thinking in hindsight. Obviously, what probably happened was they shot it and they're like, we need more kills,
yeah.
so they just added these extra scenes. That's what I think probably happened because they're really random. But
They are really
yeah,
random. They're really random. It's funny when I rewatch this. I specifically thought about that when I was rewatching this, and because it's been several years since I've seen this movie, and the fact that we've seen so many like horror movies and slash movies try to explain how all the killer kills all these people and why this film is like, oh, they're just random deaths. That's how this works back here in
yeah.
the mid '80s.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're naughty though, because But the problem is with them being naughty is like he doesn't see them being naughty. How does he know they're being naughty? Because one thing, like Linnea Quigley's character is on top of the pool table with this other dude, and they're making out and they're
Mhm.
about to have sex. She's got her shirt off, and he's got his shirt off, and they're about, that's just naughty. You can't have that.
He doesn't see
But
that
yeah,
though.
yeah, yeah. I mean, how does he know that's going on? On top of that, there's a little girl upstairs who's ready for Christmas. I guess it's her mom maybe or something, but that little girl's like wanting to come down there and hang out. And they're like, no, you stay up there,
No,
you
she's
know.
babysitting. She's babysitting.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. She's a
Yeah, she's
babysitter.
babysitting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they briefly mentioned it in there, and I had forgotten about all that too. Like I said, I've never really paid much attention, but this is her scene where she gets naked and she gets killed by one of the most memorable death scenes when Billy just picks her up like a rag doll and rams her into the horns of the freaking I think it's a deer. I think it's what it is.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a really big one, but it's
yeah.
yeah. What I mean, she does put up one heck of a fight, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't even see how like physically he could have done what he did because she was squirming like hell. Can you imagine like picking her up, and then she would still be squirming, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously so for it to work, she had to stop doing it. But she was like, that actress was really not wanting to be killed. You know, she has her shirt off for a gratuitous amount of time, which I think that might come off a little gratuitous. I didn't mind it myself, but I'm sure some people probably were like that. She has it off for like a ridiculous long time because she goes from the pool table, goes and checks outside to see a cat, and then he actually busts through the door too with the axe, but it
Yeah.
kind of like The Shining. But she comes back in and he comes after her. She closes the door. He busts through the door, and there's like this big fight. Um, so I don't know. It's a cool sequence, but it's like you say, it is random, and it does seem like it was tacked on as an afterthought.
No, dude, until you mentioned it, I hadn't really thought about it being just a tacked on scene, but now forever I will think of it as just this random scene tacked on.
But you don't think that though until later on, because it's like you see after after the after killing everybody at the store, him going back to the orphanage would be the next thing to do,
Yeah.
but that doesn't happen until the next morning. So that seems like the natural progression of what was going to happen based on the locations you've seen in the film and the characters you've seen in the film. That's why like all this would have worked better had you seen these other characters. And then the house thing is one thing, but the kids with the sled bully thing that you're talking about, that's
Yeah.
even more random than that. Because these kids and this has got to be pretty late at night, and they're in the middle of the woods sledding, and there's like two of them, and then two of them on the sleds, and these random bully guys show up and punch them and steal their sled, and it's like, okay, that was a little unnecessary, but and then apparently he saw them do this, I guess, because that's what makes him think they're naughty. But and then they go sledding down the hill, and he ends up cutting one of the kids' heads off with an axe. So in order for him to see any of this, he would have had to been up at the top of the hill and then move down to the bottom to chop the head off when he came down. So,
Yeah, I thought about that too for the first time. I thought about, so how did he see all this happening? I never took it into consideration until I rewatched it. It's like, huh. It's
yeah,
it's a cool sequence just to watch these bullies get one of them get their heads chopped off because they're sledding, and it's funny. To be honest with you, it's just these bullies who can't figure out can't sled on their own. Still, these less fortunate kids sleds just to go sledding.
yeah. It's bizarre. It's like I mean, it's kind of cool though when you're watching the movie and you're not thinking about it because it
Yeah,
does like suddenly that's what you want to see in a slasher movie. You want to see the slasher starting to kill people, and it happens, and it's pretty cool sequences.
yeah.
Another part that after Leanna the Linnea Quigley character is killed, her boyfriend Tommy comes in there and he gets to put a shirt on before getting killed, unlike her.
Yeah, yeah.
but, but he actually puts his shirt on. He thinks about that before walking into the other room. She just walk in there, no bra on or nothing, just like walk through the house. But there's carolers outside the house too before this happened. And she's just gonna go to the door with no shirt on. But he but he comes in there and he sees her, and his reaction is pretty good, seeing her hanging like, and that's a cool effect too when she's hanging up on the deer head with the horns through her. And then he puts him a pretty good fight. He actually beats him pretty good with a fire poker of all things. And before trying to, he makes the mistake of not running. He tries to call the cops, thinking that he's
Yeah.
beat him up, and real dumb mistake. And then that's when he gets up and tries to choke him with the phone cord. And but they give these characters fights, though they don't
Get
just
killed.
kill them most of the time. They do let them fight some, so that's something cool.
And I wonder if that's because what I'm trying to think of Friday 13th. You said part four was about 84. So by
Yeah,
then, people I don't remember seeing a whole bunch of slasher movies where they gave the people who are about to be killed actual time to fight back as much.
yeah, they had
But
a lot more people to kill in those movies, except for it's always like the last person who's still alive puts up a big
yes.
fight, but not like the individual characters usually.
Yeah, but with this one, a lot of the individuals put up some type of fight before being killed, which makes it much more interesting. I wonder if stuff like this turned like your typical audience member away because like I said, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this film, and you could almost see that some of these people are slightly being tortured before they are killed gratuitously on screen, between an arrow and hammers in the head and being impaled on deer antlers. uh
Yeah, I don't think there's like a torture though. I don't think there's because I think it's just fighting because he's not he does I don't think he ever tries to torture anybody. He tries to kill him. He kills him brutally, but like hammer to the head's a pretty quick death. He puts the back end of the hammer into the dude's head. And
yeah.
the arrow one was she was fighting him and she was going to
Yeah.
get away. So if he didn't have that arrow, she probably would have ran out the door. I think the door was locked, so she couldn't get out the door, but he was able to shoot her with the arrow.
Oh, that's a good
He,
point to make.
yeah, he So I don't think there's really any torture, which torture came later. That was like the fight, and then later on, it's like okay, we got to come up with something new. We could torture them too to make it even more gruesome. So
So yeah, so at this point we are more or less you making their deaths take a little longer than normal, but not torturing them just yet before we kill them.
yeah, but he's not. The character's just there to punish. I don't think he's there to torture.
Punish.
Now, yeah.
Good
He starts
word.
saying, yeah. He's there to punish them in severe ways. Now, they're not going to learn anything from this lesson because he kills them. So
No, that's a good word.
yeah,
The good word is punish. He is
yeah.
literally punishing those he sees as naughty. That's a good word to describe what he's doing. Okay.
So I guess that, and then it brings us like to the last part of the film, and the which is the orphanage during the day. Um,
Well, I want to bring up the
yeah,
cops first
yeah.
because a lot we've mentioned. I'm trying to remember the movies from the '80s that we've already mentioned, where at some point cops show up to try and help bridge a lot of the
Right.
story
And
elements.
this is actually something that we talked about too in the Hammer films, where this would always, in most Hammer films, the cops aren't part of the story until they need to be.
Hmm.
And it's usually during like the last third of the film, like or maybe sometimes in the middle, but most of the time it's in the last third of the film. They bring a cop into it when it makes sense for the cop to be in there because the sister Margaret does come. She shows up at the store,
Yep.
finds the dead people, calls the cops, and then she's working with the cops after that point to try to figure out where he's going to go next.
Yeah. Yeah. And thankfully, she's has the insight to know almost immediately where he's going. Which is convenient for the story because now we have a place where they end the whole thing, but it leads them to the section where the cops are at the are at, get to the orphanage before he does. And so that makes for a confrontation of the cops. I didn't want to skip over the
Yeah.
cops
Right.
thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
The which is actually quite hilarious in a way. There's a cop. It was his name, Officer Barnes. So he's the one that they call because they Sister Margaret and the main cop. I guess officer. I think his name's Officer Miller, but yeah, but they
Captain
call. Yeah,
Richards.
they're at the police station, which is kind of far away. I'm sorry, what was his name?
Captain Richards.
Richards. So he's like further away. They're Margaret and Richards are further away, so they have to call another cop. He
Mhm.
shows up there, and there's a Santa out there walking towards the kids, and he thinks it's Billy, and he tells him to stop, and he doesn't, and then he shoots him, and of course it's not him. So
No, it's not him. It's another father that works there who's deaf, and
yeah,
which is so tragic to hear
yeah,
that type of story. That it's one of the fathers that are at from that orphanage slash church who's dressed as Santa for the kids, and the kids watch this trauma happen in front of them.
yeah.
The cops
And,
come and they shoot Santa.
right, including his brother Ricky
Yeah,
does witness this, which in some way sets up part two.
that's the part
But
too.
yeah, but then the cops like all that Officer Barnes, he's all like, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And he's just like apologetic to. He goes and sees. This when you see Mother Superior again in the wheelchair, and she kind of comes out and tells him off. Gives him her point of view. But like I was talked about earlier, it is interesting to see her demeanor has changed somewhat, and she does seem to be more reasonable with the kids than she was with the Billy character. And they all seem to be they seem to be like they seem to actually like her for the most part. It does seem that way for the short period of time we're able to spend with those characters.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
kind of
then,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I got you were gonna say something about that part.
Well, no, I wanted to bring up something else because the thing is, we assume that as an orphan, Billy is still at lives at that orphanage since Sister Margaret got him the job at the toy store. But at this orphanage, with all of her wards, with Mother Superior, we don't see any other kids there other than really young kids at
Yeah,
the age of Ricky, his brother. And so all these years have passed since he was a little kid, and I always got the impression he stayed there, but really at what age do they let them go? And we don't see it.
it never shows where he lives. I
No.
don't think he lives at the orphanage,
Yeah.
so I don't think he does. But it should have showed where he lived at some point.
Yeah.
There's apparently a lot of deleted scenes from this movie. I do have a version of the movie that has the deleted scenes in it. Unfortunately, didn't have time to watch it, but
Oh.
they're all SD quality. I think the original running time was it was a little closer to hour 30, so it's not that many. I think some of them might have been violent inserts, a little bit of character stuff. Maybe it shows where he lives in those, but they cut them out. It is a shorter movie. It's a pretty short movie, an hour and 22 minutes. So I mean,
Mhm.
they could have kept them in there. Some of them they might have had to cut out because they're graphic. But those they didn't have a good copy of them. It's an SD quality copy, so it's they had probably pulled it from a VHS tape or something like that.
Hmm.
Because
Interesting.
the original elements of they couldn't find them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And this there's a lot. This film is very notorious and infamous. So I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if some of the elements were destroyed over the years, which was unfortunate. It's unfortunate, especially considering how much money was put in producing some of the subsequent sequels in this franchise. So,
right. But that's at this point we spend a little too much time, I think, with Officer Barnes as he walks around he walks around the orphanage checking things out when he could have just stayed inside and protected everybody.
yeah, I didn't really get that whole thing. If you're waiting for this killer Santa to show up, do lock up the insides everywhere and wait for him to show up?
Yeah,
I was not sure why the impulse was to have him go around the perimeter of the church
yeah,
and go into this. I couldn't get an idea of exactly what it is he walks down into because it was so big and it didn't
yeah,
seem like it was like a basement to the actual facility. It almost like a bunker slash storage unit that he walks in.
right.
It's so freaking huge. It's cool. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. It's cool. I just wasn't sure exactly what it was.
yeah. Nah, it is it is cool, like you say, but it's like it's not. This is like the really bad time to be doing this in the movie. I'm saying this could have worked at any other part in the movie, but not during the last like 10 minutes. But this, the reason that they do it is because they had to get the cop out of there so he could get killed. That's the reason they did it. It doesn't make sense. What he does doesn't make sense, but that's why they wrote it the way that they wrote it.
We needed one more good death
Yeah.
before the end.
Well, I don't even know if that's the case. I think that they just needed him out of the picture so the Santa Claus can show up and confront Mother Superior,
Yeah,
for the last part. Because if the cop's there, that really complicates that last scene.
yeah.
So they had to get him out of there. So I mean, it's a hard writing thing when you think about that because they wanted to have the other Santa Claus get shot, and then you have to also have the cop not be there for the final showdown. So
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
no,
I
I
guess
agree with you.
yeah,
You have to get rid of him because then he has to confront his greatest nemesis, so to speak, which is Mother Superior. And he does that in front of his brother, uh, Ricky. So, and it's a very important scene because then obviously, uh, the captain and Sister Margaret are just there at the right time uh to save everyone slash kill um Billy, who's in the costume, Santa costume. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate that the trauma begets more trauma for this movie, dude.
right, yeah, yeah, and it's interesting, and it is kind of it is kind of bizarre that they just happened to show up right on time. That's one of those moments that kind of had to happen, I guess, in that way. Because he could have, he's
Cinematic
there,
license.
yeah. And it's like I don't think he's seen like another thing. I don't think he's seen Mother Superior for a long time when he confronts her here. But it's almost like I feel like that scene kind of it worked out. I think I almost feel like it could have used a little something more than what happens there, but it does work out that he gets shot, and then I don't. It's something about it feels a little off. The whole thing. It doesn't feel. It feels like something like then the Mother Superior. Um, let's see. The Mother Superior is I guess the younger brother Ricky blames her for Billy's death, even though she wasn't really her fault. But he does seem to address the naughty line, which
Yeah,
sets him up as the villain in the sequel towards her for some reason, and I don't know why that is exactly, other than to say it because she's not the one that shoots him, and she's trying to talk him down when he's in there.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree. Unless at some point Ricky has seen the abuse that Mother Superior put upon his brother and or other children
yeah,
that were her ward. It does seem odd, but it makes for a really interesting twist at the very end. Uh,
right,
it makes
yeah.
for a one hell of a little twist. Ricky is traumatized now, just like his brother was traumatized by Santa Claus.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, yeah, I think you needed that ending. I just think it was slightly off, is
Yeah.
all. It's like, but I think the ending is the right ending. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I just felt like it was somewhat off, whether it be with the writing or with the way it's directed. But it seemed like a very chaotic scene.
That's interesting. I have to think about that again. It's this film overall is one of those films where there are a lot of details that you kind of wonder why they are the way they are. And it's mostly in terms of logic, despite the fact that they work for the plot of the
Yeah,
movie that you're watching, but they don't always feel authentic and like the right choice. I guess it's the best way for me to say that. So you question it, but you only question it when you're trying to think about the actual details of the movie. When you're
yeah,
just watching it for entertainment value, you kind of throw out a lot of these actual thoughts and feelings about the movie. At least
right,
I do. I don't know about you.
yeah,
I know I do.
yeah, yeah. I think that just the you needed that confrontation, and you needed him. He could have killed Mother Superior, maybe. I don't know if that would have been effective or not. If I'm not mistaken, I think they actually kill her in the second one. I'm pretty sure the Ricky character does kill her. If it's been a little while since I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure he kills her. And I don't think the same actress plays her though. I think she's even more messed up in that one than in this one. So,
You know what? I don't know either because it's been a while since I've seen this entire franchise. It's probably been since a few years after the fifth one.
but that second one is just bonkers. I think that I don't think Mother Superior really needed to get killed, but maybe that maybe it makes more sense in the second one. But I don't,
So it's probably been about 20 years since I've seen these movies.
yeah,
Since the fifth one came out in 91. I did not realize it was that fucking old. Uh I used to watch these every freaking Christmas when I was younger, and then I guess after I went to college to study film, I didn't rewatch any of these movies again. Um,
Right. Well, this is really the only one of them that is somewhat of a uh, something to analyze. The other ones are pretty straightforward for the most part. This one definitely has some parts that can be analyzed. I think there's things that are off, but I think the director is on to something interesting with what he was doing.
mm,
Which
so
yeah, the director too. I had some notes about him,
okay,
but he apparently did a lot of TV and a lot of movies, and like most of them. His name was Charles E. Sellier Jr. Nothing I'd seen. He did a show called The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams in the movie, and he was a producer on this movie called The Boogans, which you've probably seen. I hadn't seen that one, but
yeah, I've seen the Boogans.
yeah,
Uh,
but
I think they may have a good version of it out now. I saw it on YouTube. Just like
yeah.
I saw Elves. I don't think there's a good version of Elves out, but I saw it on YouTube.
There's a Kino Lorber version of Boogans. And from what I've read, it's not a very good version, even though it's 4K. I've read that it was a pretty bad version of it. It still looks pretty bad, but it's probably better than it's ever looked on physical media. But it probably may look better at the theater. But he apparently wrote and produced 30 30 or more than 30 movies and 230 television shows. But this ended his director's career for the most part because of all the controversy around the film. I think he directed a couple other movies, but nothing big, and so it kind of really messed his career up for a long time
Hmm.
for making this movie because the way it was so badly picketed and just talked shit about like Siskel and Ebert like really hated it. They talked a lot of smack about it.
Yeah,
But
that is kind of sad though. That's what happened. You're right. Good God, yeah, he did. He stopped directing in '85, but he continued to produce for a long time. Wow,
right, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's pretty good, well directed, and it's the sort of thing where you could see him as a director growing, like going forward, because he had some interesting ideas on what he was doing, and I think that he could have pulled him in. Unfortunately, it would have been cool for him to bring this into a second one and see what he would have done with it.
Well, for me, I have a question of do the notoriety, the infamy and the notoriety of this first film, how this movie spawned a freaking five film franchise to begin
Yeah.
with. And
Well, yeah.
the first three are the only ones that link with the same story, but the fourth and fifth one are completely self-contained and have nothing to do with it. Um,
Well, the third one at times changed, obviously, but like the third one, which is in 1989, and the fourth and the fifth one were all direct to video sequels.
yes.
And so it was kind of like the market at that point was direct to video, and that was why it worked at that point. Even this movie, they made a lot of money in video rental sales, and so this one and the second one, and they it probably made a lot more money than it would have just from the cover of this and the notoriety, because people weren't able to see it for a long time because it was pulled from the theaters, and it wasn't until video rentals started probably after the second one, which is '87. So
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. I honestly, I remember when they all came out. I mean,
Yeah,
I saw part three and part four and part five when they were released straight to video when they came out. Part four, especially because it was directed by Brian Usna, who I love as one of my directors, who isn't given enough credit either. But
yeah.
I
I actually like part four pretty good. It's not very Christmassy, but I think
no,
it's pretty good though.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
Christmas and that one's kind of like an afterthought, or it's almost like it could have taken place during any time, but it's still like it's a nice it's a witchcraft film, and it's like it's pretty well done, really.
Well,
Like,
it's about as notorious as the fifth one having Mickey Rooney in there,
yeah,
who chastised the original film when it came
right,
out, and it ends up
yeah,
playing in part five.
yeah,
I always have this thought that he was making part five, and I actually realizing it was a sequel to the series
yeah,
that he chastised when it originally came out. It was, and
yeah.
I keep thinking, maybe it was under a different name or something. But then you told me, I think it was you who told me that it was also produced by Brian Usna, which I did not realize. I was like,
Right. It is
yeah,
produced
yeah,
by him.
he had to have known that he was making a sequel. He was in a sequel to one of the films he talked out on when the original came out. I was
We,
like,
I think, well, I think you're probably right about him, Mickey Rooney not knowing that it was a Silent Night. I bet you they called it the Toy Maker, and then changed the name later on.
it could have been.
Maybe he's pretty good in that movie. Mickey Rooney is. He plays like the Toy Maker.
Mm. But
He's
Brian Usna was known for doing these straight to video fucking sequels. Uh,
yeah,
he made a career out of doing a lot of straight to video films around this time. And I watched every one of these damn movies he did when he was producing them in the late I think late 80s, early 90s is when he was doing a lot of them. Uh,
right, yeah.
Unfortunately, we have not touched upon any of his films, I don't think, on our program, so we'll have to change that. Uh,
Did you do Reanimator?
we have yes, we did do Reanimator.
Yeah.
We were about to do well. Uh,
Yeah.
Stuart Gordon directed the first one, and then
Yeah.
Brian took over for the sequel.
Well, he produced it
And he
though.
produced it,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
And that's the
yeah.
thing is I always forget which movies he produced because I was following him as a director and not so much a
Yeah,
producer. He's produced so much shit that
yeah,
I don't always look at that. So.
yeah, yeah.
But getting back to the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, because everyone who's listening, we will eventually get around to commenting on all the films of this franchise because there's very few Christmas themed horror franchises out there. So of course we're going to have to get around to doing all of these eventually. So be on the lookout for that over the next couple of years, unless we decide to do them all for 1 year.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to subject ourselves, Dave, to watching all of these within the same time.
I think I did it 1 year a few years ago and watched them all. That was kind of why I don't remember them. The second one, I'm pretty sure that he kills Mother Superior in it, but I watched them all though. Like I think it may have been like a year or two back. I watched them all. Like,
It's been at least 20 years since I've watched them all,
including that remake, the 2012 remake.
which
Pretty
I
solid. Yeah.
loved,
Yeah.
the remake. But I have not seen more than twice. I've only seen it twice, and of course, I am looking forward to the new version, the new one, which comes out this year, and hopefully it comes out without any delays this year. Um,
I'm picketing that thing though. I'm going over there, picketing that shit.
I know. You know what? With as many killer Santa Claus movies as we had, I was like, I don't think anyone gives a shit anymore in this day and age.
Nah,
It's unfortunate that this movie is only remembered by general audiences for what happened when it originally was released, and it's not more fondly remembered. I mean, there's plenty of Christmas themed horror films out there, and as your listeners, we hope you take the time to listen to some of our other podcast episodes on the other Christmas themed movies out there that we're tackling this year. And we hope to tackle more because it's such a huge genre for us. There's so many great Christmas themed horror films nowadays. And there's more being made every year. It's it's like Halloween. It's the greatest holiday for horror to happen.
yeah.
But Dave, do you have any other thoughts on this film? That have we missed anything in regards to Silent Night, Deadly Night?
But yeah, I was going to point out a cool little part that happens when Ricky shows up at the orphanage. There's a snowman outside. He takes the axe and cuts the snowman's head off just randomly. It's such a it's a cool entrance of him showing up there, but it's just like he's so mad he just cuts the snowman's head off.
Oh, the Billy, not Ricky.
Oh yeah, that's a Ricky. Yeah,
I was like, wait,
Billy.
Ricky's too
Yeah,
young.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Billy, the killer in this one, shows up there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna point that out because we didn't talk about it earlier. I thought it was a
he
cool
did.
shot.
That's like the last straw for Christmas for him. It's literally the day after, or it's the day. It's
It
Christmas
is
morning.
Christmas Day, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and essentially, that's another thing about Mother Superior. Essentially, what happens at the very beginning is they're giving the presents out to all the kids. So she doesn't seem like the evil Mother Superior that we've come to know her from the first part of the movie and what Billy grew up with. She's actively giving these kids Christmas gifts Christmas morning. So,
Yeah.
um, and then of course Billy shows up and chops the head off of a snowman, among other great things. Anything else that we should touch upon?
I think we covered it pretty good.
Okay, so with that, I do want to thank you, Dave, for joining me on this conversation, especially during this holiday of Christmas and December, in which we get a chance to actually delve deep into these holiday horror films. We didn't get to do this last year, so it's really fun and great that we get to do it this year for everyone who listens to our program. But what we love to do at the end of our program now is we love to rate the movie. We rate them from 1 to 5 stars normally, but we are now doing something different with our program in which we rate the film based on something we see or an object in the movie to make it a little bit more fun for everyone out there listening to our program. So 1 obviously is going to be poor, 5 is going to be great. And Dave has done this many times already in previous episodes. So Dave, what would you rate this film? Silent Night, Deadly Night, the original from 1984.
So with this one, he uses several different weapons, but I'm going to go with what the most iconic one is the bloody axe,
Mm.
dripping with blood. I will give that one 3.5 bloody axes.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna give it 3 pairs of being impaled on deer antlers. Is what I'm gonna give it because it one deer. I'm gonna fucking say her name correctly. Linnea Quigley. I'm gonna get her name right one day.
Yeah, I think that was it. You're like within a syllable of it.
So, Linnea, hopefully you don't chastise us for butchering your name. I've seen so much stuff that you've been in, including I've watched the workout video you did, and I still have no idea how to pronounce your name correctly, and I feel like an
But
idiot.
I
But
think he said her first name right. You just didn't finish her last name. It's Linnea Quigley, I think is right. I might be wrong too, though. Let's see.
yeah, yeah.
I-
We haven't done Return of the Living Dead yet, but when we do that for the program, I'll make sure to have her name uh, proper like, and whatever other films we discuss with her in it, because she's in so many of them. Uh, with that, I hope that you all have enjoyed this special episode, Christmas theme episode of Silent Deadly Night. Please make sure if you love this film, check it out. If you don't, well, go watch the remake. You might be more inclined to like that one, or even the remake that is Silent Night. So you have the Silent Night remake as well as the current Silent Night Deadly Night remake being released in 2025.
There's two other movies called Silent Night that aren't Silent Night that aren't
Yes,
based on this. There's a new one from like a year or two back, and then there's one with
they're
I
both
think
about
Joel Kinnaman in it. The one from last year had like um, geez, what's the guy's name from Downton Abbey?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
Dan.
I haven't seen that one. I
Dan-
have
yeah,
seen the John Woo with Joel Kinnaman Silent Night.
yeah,
But yes, those are not the right ones. You want the one that has Malcolm McDowell in it.
yeah, yeah. Michael Dowell's really great in that
Yeah,
too.
he's really good in that remake. I actually really enjoy the remake. But we'll have to get to that one a little bit later. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we hope you've enjoyed the program. Please make sure to check out previous episodes that we've done on a plethora of other great horror films, including the horror films that we've tackled this month during our month of December and Christmas horror. Make sure to check out our sister podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which delves deep into Hammer Studio films. If you are a lover of classic Hammer Studio films, you will enjoy that podcast. From all of us here, have a pleasant holiday experience, and please make sure to leave us some gifts underneath your Christmas tree. We'll be more than welcome to come and grab them. But if you don't leave us something, you've been very naughty, and we'll come after you with an axe. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.